In the 2011-2012 La Liga season, Radamel Falcao scored 24 goals. In most seasons, that would have been enough to win him La Liga's top scorer award. In fact, 29 times out of the 50 La Liga seasons before the arrival of Messi and Ronaldo, 24 goals would have been enough to win the trophy. But that season, he ended up third. At first, that might not sound shocking, but once you look at the numbers, you start to understand just how absurd this really was. Cristiano Ronaldo scored 46 league goals that season, and Messi scored 50. They scored almost double Falcao's goals. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The gap that Messi and Ronaldo had between them and the rest of the league is huge, which leads us to the real question here. Between Messi and Ronaldo, who's the better player? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to use advanced data to determine who the better player really is. And after countless hours of research, stats, and spreadsheets, I think I've got it. An almost definitive conclusion on who the greatest player is. But how can you accurately compare two of the most unique players in football history? Well, first, I had to determine the metrics I wanted to measure. And here they are: shooting and finishing, passing and creation, dribbling and possession, trophies and team success. 4 isolated dimensions that capture every major aspect of the game. Using data to compare Messi and Ronaldo was the easy part. For example, take dribbling, which can be measured fairly accurately by dribbling success percentage. Messi's dribbling success percentage is 62% throughout his career. Ronaldo's dribbling success percentage is 57.8% throughout his career. Most people would say Messi's the better dribbler, give 100 points to Messi, and move on. But that's not fair. Messi has better numbers, yes, but by how much? The gap between these two numbers is just as important as the numbers themselves. So I used a head-to-head scoring system, a method that not only accounts for who has better stats, but also how much better those stats are. And here's the formula used to calculate the score. And after crunching the numbers, Messi ends up with a score of 51.75, and Ronaldo with a score of 48.25. Using this method, I calculated the score for every category in this experiment. Then, I tallied up those scores to find who is really the better player. The player with the highest score after evaluating all categories is, of course, the better player. So now you know the method. Let's see the results. The first category we're going to look at is shooting and finishing. Let's start with shooting. Throughout their careers, Messi and Ronaldo have been excellent shooters. And instead of strictly using goals per 90 to measure their scoring ability like normal people do, we're going to use more precise metrics for that, which are shots on target percentage and goals per shot. These two metrics combine both shooting quality and accuracy. Over his career, Ronaldo's averaged a 38.5% shots on target rate, paired with a 0.12 goals per shot. Messi, on the other hand, has averaged 44% shots on target, along with 0.15 goals per shot. Now, when it comes to finishing, there's a metric specifically designed to measure a player's finishing ability, and that is expected goals over performance. This metric looks at the quality of chances a player gets and how well he finishes them, allowing us to measure how effective a player is at converting chances in any given situation. Messi has a career expected goals over performance of plus 0.15 per 90 minutes, while Ronaldo has a career expected goals over performance of plus 0.01 per 90 minutes. And with that, here's the final score for shooting and finishing. Messi ends up with a score of 67.55, ahead of Ronaldo, who finishes with 32.45. This category is widely dominated by Messi, mainly due to his role as a primary playmaker, unlike Ronaldo, who plays more like a traditional striker. At Barcelona, the offensive build-up often starts with Messi, while at Real Madrid, Ronaldo's role was primarily to finish attacks rather than create them. Despite that, Ronaldo's still elite in passing and creation compared to most other players. Throughout his career, Ronaldo's averaged 1.32 key passes per 90 minutes and 0.85 expected assist over performance per 90 minutes. This is essentially the same concept as expected goals over performance, but applied to assists. He also averages 0.5 goal-creating actions per 90 minutes, which is actually very impressive. However, even these strong numbers are not enough to surpass Messi's passing and playmaking output. Messi spent his entire career as one of the greatest offensive generators in football history, both carrying the offense and operating within it. He's averaged 0.75 expected assist over performance, 2.63 key passes per game, and a mind-blowing 1.15 goal-creating actions per 90 minutes. All of this leads to a final score of 61.05 for Messi and 38.95 for Ronaldo. Now, for the next category, we'll be looking at dribbling and possession. People tend to forget how good Ronaldo was at dribbling early in his career. Before his transition from winger to striker, especially at Manchester United, his playstyle was centered around isolation and penetration from the wing, just like a classic winger. As his role evolved, he attempted fewer and fewer dribbles per game, not because he couldn't, but simply because he didn't need to. And still, he managed to maintain very strong numbers. Ronaldo averaged 57.8 successful dribbles, paired with 4.04 progressive carries per game. But even these impressive numbers aren't enough to outperform Messi's. Messi averaged 62% successful dribbles, and when you pair that with 5.39 progressive carries per game, you get one of the most versatile players of all time. Messi ends up with a total score of 54.46, while Ronaldo finishes with 45.54. Now, we can't have a thorough debate without discussing the accomplishments of each player. Numbers are great, and they absolutely have their place, but individual statistics alone are not fully indicative of greatness. They're a vehicle to greatness. That's why, despite Romario spending 2 decades scoring goals, most people don't consider him greater than players with fewer numbers. The numbers complement the accolades, not the other way around. So now, let's take a look at the accomplishments of both Messi and Ronaldo. There are plenty of awards a player can earn in football, but these are the ones that truly stand out on a player's resume. Ballon d'Ors, top scorer awards, Champions Leagues, league titles, domestic cups, and international cups. Among these 6 categories, Messi beats Ronaldo in 5 of them. The only category where Ronaldo outperforms Messi is the Champions League, but even that is not enough. We also have to look at a player's contribution to team success, and for that, we have the perfect metric: team success on-off. This metric measures how much better a team performs with a player on the pitch compared to when he's off it. And here as well, Messi dominates Ronaldo. But that still isn't enough. There's another factor that people often forget, and that is clutch. In football, clutch refers to a player's ability to deliver decisive actions in the most important moments. In other words, it's how you perform when it matters most. Here's a chart showing football legends who scored the most goals past the round of 16 in the Champions League. Most of them fall between 5 and 15 goals, like Raul, Eusebio, and Lewandowski. As you go higher, you find Puskas and Benzema with 17 goals, and then Lionel Messi with a remarkable 19 goals. But completely isolated, in a league of his own, you'll find Cristiano Ronaldo with 43 goals. That's 23 more goals than Messi. So after factoring in all of these numbers, Messi ends up with 53.90 and Ronaldo with 46.10. And with that, we've now assessed Messi and Ronaldo across all 4 categories, a process of research that took me far longer than I'm willing to admit, but it was all worth it. After scanning a field of dozens of metrics, the better player is Lionel Messi, which completely adds up to me. Messi's career was a near-perfect story. He played in a team and system that suited his skill set extremely well, and both he and Barca peaked right as the dominant teams of the mid to late 2000s began to fade away. You couldn't have written a better career if you tried. On the other hand, despite his success, Ronaldo stepped out of his comfort zone multiple times. He changed teams, leagues, positions, and even play styles to adapt to different environments. And as I said earlier, numbers alone are not indicative of greatness. They're simply a vehicle to greatness. That's why I consider Maradona a better football player than Pele, but Pele a greater player than Maradona. Pele achieved his greatness through his numbers, while Maradona achieved his greatness through his style and his legendary World Cup run. Here's the final result, with the total score across all categories. Personally, I think Messi's a better football player than Ronaldo, and that's exactly what the data confirms. But is he a greater player than Ronaldo? That part is up to you to decide. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.